Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Man, the month of May is upon us. An exciting time of the year. You know, we did a video on the top baits that I like to throw in May. When I think of May, it's all about top waters a lot of times. But now let's do the Optima batteries, where to start. We gotta know where to throw those baits when it comes to May. So, and one thing I wanna say, we're giving another battery away this month. Thanks a lot to Optima. So be sure you're a subscriber. Be sure you like it. You know, you loyal fans that are watching my channel, yes, you can win this battery. You don't have to be a new subscriber. You don't have to have a, you know, just all you have to be is a subscriber. So we just go down through there. We usually pick one that's kind of commented fairly quick. You know, this past month's winner is Jimmy Faulkner. Went through there and he's a subscriber and he liked and he commented on my video. That's all you got to do. I'm gonna mail Jimmy a battery certificate. You got a brand new Optima Blue Top coming your way, Jimmy. I appreciate you being a loyal subscriber and watcher. But with that said, month of May, the 3 lakes that I chose, well, you helped me choose them because I've had people comment on one of them, the Ohio River. That's going to be my one that I've never been to. I've been to the lower part of the Ohio River. I picked the Markland Pool. I think it's kind of up there by Cincinnati or south of Cincinnati. It's 75 miles long. It's one of the biggest pools. Yeah, it looks really cool. So I'm really excited to break that down for you guys. The next body of water I chose, I've had a lot of comments on the Potomac River. Let's talk about the Potomac River, a great fishery over on the East Coast. And then last, we've had comments on Kentucky Lake. So we're gonna break all 3 of those down for you right here on this channel. So let's break these lakes down. Let's start out with Kentucky Lake. Awesome lake. I'm really, you know, I haven't been there in a few years. I really don't know how much those Asian carp have affected it. You know, for those guys that don't know, there's just a huge influx of Asian carp, you know, and I hear a lot of the biologists and the wildlife people say they're not affecting it as bad as we fishermen think that it's getting affected. But, you know, I'm gonna break this down as it is from the last time I was there and where I would start on Kentucky Lake. And I'm gonna just, you know, Kentucky Lake's so big. I think it's like 170, no, it's 270 miles long. It's 169,000 acres or something. Crazy monster big lake. So I'm gonna just pick one little section of this to break it down, just to make it easier. I mean, this is like a 15-20 minute video and we could talk about Kentucky Lake for days and days and days because it's so big, so diverse. So I'm gonna break down the northern end of that lake. So, you know, for everybody that understands, Kentucky Lake's one of those weird lakes that goes from the south to the north. You know, not a lot of lakes in our country flow from the south to the north. So this is going to be down towards the dam end of Kentucky Lake. And let's just pick Jonathan Creek and start right there because it's such a diverse creek, a big creek that has everything in it that I would need to go to figure out what stage those fish are in if I'm going there for the first time in the month of May. You know, when I think about Kentucky Lake and I think about May, they raise that water level. You know, they've got that thing in a winter pool, you know, all winter long, and then they start raising that water level. And it has such a big effect on those fish because I think, you know, they want a steeper bank. You know, when I go to Kentucky Lake and I think of places where they're gonna spawn or have spawned, it's gonna happen on steeper banks. So back up just a little bit too. In May, it's a unique month because a lot of fish will wait on that water to spawn. There's fish that'll spawn in April, but there's fish that wait on that water to come up, you know, in April and start spawning, you know. So there's gonna be fish spawning in the 1st of May. But then by the end of May, you're gonna have fish offshore, catching them, cranking, football jig, Carolina rig, stand-up worm, all those things that we love to do, you know, offshore fishing by the end of May. So keep that in mind. May's moving month, man. The U-Haul's pulled in. The bass are going this direction, bass are going that direction, and they're moving. I mean, it truly is that way in the month of May. And you have it all right here in Jonathan Creek. So when I zoom in here on my Contour Plus map from Lawrence, let's start in the back. Let's start at the 1st of May and what I would look for. So just a few things. You know, when you look at this map, I'm gonna look at these steeper banks right here. Those are the areas that I think those fish are going to spawn. There's one in particular back here that's like almost a dugout. It's got some docks. If I was to show you here on this satellite imagery, of what I'm talking about or what I'm looking for. You know, this photo here is when the water's a little low, and you can see, man, look how steep that bank is. I've got a deep little vein coming in on those docks. Man, what a great place to start for fish to spawn. They could spawn right here on this bank. They got deep water access to it. Then if we had a shad spawn, you know, by the middle of May, man, that dock right there, every one of them things are gonna pull out there. They're gonna get their bellies full on a shad spawn on that dock. It's just a great, great deal. A great little, it's got a little bit of it all right there in that stretch. Then, you know, talking about deeper stretches for fish to spawn. See how this water comes in close to this bank right here? So when I fill this lake up, show you a picture of it full, just to show you those two spots of things that I'm looking for. Let's wait on this to, okay, there we go. Now that's the lake full. You can see that there's just water right up behind those docks. You can see that's the stuff that I want to try to find when I go to Kentucky Lake. So just to back out again, you know that you got that bridge. Those fish are they're gonna spawn back in here. They're gonna swim out the month of May, and then they're gonna be on these points. You know, when I look at these points right here, I got a point right there, I got a point right there, I got points, but really, in reality, they're gonna skip a lot of this stuff and just directly try to go out here and get in what makes Kentucky Lake so great, all that current. You know, that thing is just a monster massive current that's going this direction. So think about the direction that current's going. You know, you've got right there, you've got a great point facing into the current. I like stuff facing into the current. You've got another one right here facing into the current. You got another one right here. You've got a couple little deals right here that are a little more hidden. You know, right here, this little turnout, that little hump right there, but I like that little turnout right there. That's the stuff I'm looking for towards the end of May. Right there, you know, that stuff where water's pushing this way. I think about all the current pushing this way, thinking about shell beds. That's when I'm gonna change over to those crankbaits. One thing I wanna say that I might have overlooked real quick, let's talk about smallmouth, just because smallmouth are so prevalent on this lower end. You know, when I think about smallmouth, they're gonna spawn fairly close to that main lake, if not on the main lake. So I look at these bars, you know, I'll come over here and you look on this side of the lake, you know, maybe on this LBJ side, you've got these bars right at the mouth of these pockets. That's where those smallmouth are gonna spawn. I put an X on that one just because it looks so good. You've got all this deep water, and then right here, I've got bars that are 10 to 15 foot deep. And with that kind of water clarity, sometimes 18 feet deep, you can fish those bars, you know, fish them with a tube, a football jig, Carolina rig, a Ned rig, and catch smallmouth on those gravel bars on the mouths of these pockets all down through here. So think about that too, especially the start of May. You know, I sit there and I say that, and probably the majority of those smallmouth have already spawned. But if you're in April for next year, if you're watching it in the past, that's where they're gonna spawn. Now those smallmouth are gonna move on out, but it is one thing to look at sometimes, you know, especially if things are running behind. I love those bars at the mouths of those pockets for those smallmouth. You know, that's a really quick breakdown on Kentucky Lake. You know, that's one creek. We talked about looking for steeper banks, looking for those mouths of those bars, looking for as the end of the month comes out towards the mouth of the creeks. And we talked a little bit about the shad spawn on those marinas, on those ripraps. So those are the things that I'm thinking about the month of May on Kentucky Lake. Now let's move east. Let's go from there. Let's go to the beautiful Ohio River. And let's just do it right here on satellite. Just look at it here on this satellite imagery, because, you know, just with a river, you know, you have depths and stuff. It's not near as important for all those contour lines. So I spent a little time looking at this pool, and just such a cool pool. I mean, it looks really, really awesome. I don't know, it looks awesome, awesome, awesome. Zooming in on it here. Okay, so let's just start down here at the dam. So this is one thing I want you to keep in mind when you are fishing a river with locks and dams. Always think about the lower end of that lake. If you have a lot of weather coming in and a lot of water fluctuations, the lower end of that pool, it doesn't rise as much because the water's going through the dam. So like if the upper end is super high, you can go down to that to that dam, and it's not gonna be high. It's gonna be more of a consistent level, if not almost the opposite, because when they're pulling so much water, they'll pull that lower end and it'll get even a foot, foot and a half lower than normal pool, and the upper end can almost be flooded. So think about that. But I usually like, under adverse weather conditions, the lower ends of those pools are up to the mid-level, because those are the areas that the water level is most consistent, down towards the dam on the lower end. Now this pool here is 75 miles long, so you're gonna have a wide array of water level if you're under a flood condition. So, you know, looking right here, starting at the dam, you know, with the water most consistent level, man, a couple really cool spots right off the bat. You know, anytime I've got a marina, that's gonna house a lot of fish year round. It's just great fish cover. I love the fact that this little pocket right here is a dredged out man-made pocket. So you got to think about a river bass and the water levels fluctuating. You got to think about current. You got to get out of the current. We're talking about May. These fish are going to get to spawning, really close to spawning, and they want the cleanest, most stable water that they've got. So when I go back in time right here, I found a photo. Maybe if I click on that, it'll take me to that. That showed that just a little bit cleaner in there, in that harbor. So to me, that's important, because I want clean water in that harbor. Yeah, that may be it. So you got all this flow coming down through here. There's not gonna be any flow in there. I've got steeper banks, hard banks, because it's man-made. And I got a big marina there to draw fish power, and it's really close to the main river that fish can, you know, go in and out. They can summer out here if they want some current. Now, to take it a little step further, you know, so many fish on a river system, they live in these creeks year round. And I had to mark these bridges back here, because, you know, bridges are bridges, you know, they're great funnels to catch fish going in and out. So I wanted to mark these bridges, especially start of May, shad spawn towards the end of May, all those things. And I've got a really nice housing development back here. So I've got lots of riprap, I've got good solid banks, lots of stuff that could happen in the back of this creek that I like the way it looks. It just looks really, really awesome. Yeah, just good spawning cover. I mean, guys, this is fishy, fishy, fishy looking, this whole river system. I know the Ohio River's tough, but I just marked right over here, just another little spawning pocket you can see. You got flow coming out of here, you got flow coming out of here after a rain event, but there's not gonna be much flow in that, you know, little pocket right there when I zoom in on it. So I thought that was a good looking little spawning pocket. I think, and you can see how clear it is. You know, you got water flowing out here, and you got fairly clean right there. Something I wanna, you know, let's talk about another creek right here. When I marked this creek, because I wanna show you something. Let's put this thing in flood mode. So you can see right here, this is a March photo. Look how clean that water is. You got really dirty water coming out of this creek, but I got clean water coming out of this creek. So always in the springtime, find the cleanest water you can possibly find. So I can tell you this creek, man, I'm gonna go to that. That's gonna be an area that those fish are gonna gravitate towards, because they're spawning, and without photo being flooded like that, that just shows me, you know, cleaner water, which is very, very important. And then I just had to mark in here, I'm gonna fast forward just a little bit, get out of that photo. One thing this is just a side tip, anytime you're fishing creeks, anytime you have a pipeline or a power line crossing the creek, fish those spots. That bank is hard right there. That bank is it's just a given. Anytime you're fishing creeks, I don't care what time of the year it is, when you have a power line or a pipeline crossing those creeks, those are key little spots in those creeks. That's just a side tidbit, maybe not necessarily May, but I sure would fish those too. I marked power lines right there. All right, I'm gonna keep moving on, guys. I don't want this video to get too long. I marked another pocket right here, and you can just see, like, when you look at this right here, just look how clean that water is. It's just a little backwater off this main creek and not very far off the river channel. That's why I marked it. It just looks good to me. Now, it's gonna be shallow. Like when I take the water off of it, I think there's a photo in here that, yeah, it's gonna be shallow, but man, a lot of times, you know, it's those shallow areas that are hard to get into at the mouth that get just a little deeper. It just may need to be 6 inches deeper. That'll hold fish to spawn, I promise you. All right, moving on, moving on. I marked just a couple other areas right here. I marked this because I don't know, like when in this flooded photo, this water in here is a little cleaner, and it's a backwater that might be hard to get into. So you know, it just maybe. That's kind of like a big maybe. But this right here, this ditch, I like this ditch because it looks man-made to me, which is, if something's dug out and it's man-made, it's gonna have a harder bottom. So those fish are gonna spawn. It's gonna have a better bottom to spawn. It's gonna have steeper sides. You know, so many things in a river, you know, they're so used to water fluctuating that they want to have, you know, fairly steep banks. They're not gonna be on super flat stuff way far away from deeper water. I like that man-made ditch for the harder bottom for a spawn type deal. I'm trying to hurry along here, guys, and just show you a few more things that stuck out to me as I broke down the Ohio River. Let's see. Oh, this boat basin here looks awesome. Awesome, awesome. Man, it's gonna have sun on it all day long. You know, I've got, you know, south sun. This is the north bank. Very protected. Again, another man-made structure that's gonna have steeper banks, hard bottom, lots of boat docks to draw from, you know, just good fishing habitat. You know, you're gonna have a good looking point right here that those fish could stage up on this point. You're gonna have some current coming down here and no current here. So, all right, I got one more thing marked right here. I just marked a spawning pocket. Why did I mark this? Oh, again, just another man-made boat harbor basin. Kind of cool, you know, it looks really good. This here looks to me like, if I took the water off of it, that's a flooded picture. So this here is kind of really shallow getting in here, but then there's some depth back in here. So I like areas like that, you know, that may be a little harder to get into. That's the kind of stuff I look for. Then I've got this boat harbor. Again, just a man-made boat harbor. It's gonna have harder banks, you know, it's gonna have good water depth to it, you know, year round. So, you know, guys, in a nutshell, that's what I looked for on the Ohio River. I'm gonna try to get out of that current. I'm gonna try to find the cleanest water possible. I'm gonna try to always think about the hard bottom, think about a little bit steeper banks, and just put myself in high percentage areas on the Ohio River. And think about the pool, you know, because the water at the dam and then the water at the upper end, it's going like this. So it's always gonna be higher if you have a lot of rain at that upper end. If things are flooded, if you gotta run away from that flood, go down to the dam. But you can also use that flood to your advantage and maybe get into some areas that you normally can't, especially on the upper end of those pools. So that's the Ohio River. That's the breakdown of where I would start there on the Ohio River. All right, let's move over to the Potomac River. Just a cool fishery that I love. I just love it. It's a neat place. One thing that I'm always thinking about on the Potomac River is clean, clear water. I've got to have the cleanest water possible. In the month of May, I want to be, and generally speaking, I want to be just outside the current, you know, just off of it. I don't have to be very far, but I want to be off the current. And then I also, you know, I think a lot of those fish, for the vast numbers of fish. Now, like at the Potomac River, you've got fish that live in those creeks year round. In the backs of those creeks, they stay in there, I think, year round. But then you have I think even a bigger number of fish that relate to that main river. So if I can find clean, clearer water close to that main river, I think that's the biggest potential for the most amount of fish. So with that said, you know, when I think of like just like the perfect spot to show you guys, I don't remember the name of this pocket, but I know this stretch right here has fish in it. So here's the main river. And then you just come immediately off of it, and I've got grass beds all down through here. And it's clean, clear water because it's got grass, it's got, you know, milfoil. That's the stuff that I want to find. Something that's clean and clear, out of the main flow, but yet close to the main flow. I think that's very critical for the most amount of fish. Zooming out a little bit, if we were to go down to another pocket, let's just find another one. Just something that I think, I mean, just stands out to me. Now, these main lake bays can be good too. I think, well, let's see what I got right here before I go to the main lake bays. Oh, I just think this looks super cool. This pocket here, you guys from Potomac River are gonna know, I mean, it's just got a huge marina. Again, I love marinas. They've got big drawing power for lots and lots of fish. Generally, they got, you know, good water depth or just lots of cover. But when you look over here on this, there's a cool ditch. Let me find the photo that goes through this. You can see it right here. You've got a really neat ditch that runs right down through here. So I'm gonna have good depth, but then yet right here I got all kinds of lily pads. So it's just, in my opinion, it could be a really good spawning pocket. I got lots of fish drawing factors. You know, I've got a highway for those fish to come in. Just a neat place. You know, here's what I like to do. I like to, you know, on that low tide, you know, you're gonna see a lot of fish. Fishing gets really good, you know, on the front side and the back side of that low tide. But again, you know, a lot of times I feel like those spawning fish are the easiest to catch around the high tide. So if I go through an area and I see lots of them and they're kind of just swimming around and they're spooky and scattered, you know, those are the times that, you know, I'm gonna be pitching a drop shot. I'm gonna be, you know, using more finesse techniques, trying to stay back out off of them. That swimming worm would be a great technique. But then I'm gonna come back through those exact same areas in and around that high tide, because and a lot of times I think those fish set up and they get easier, much easier to catch. I can't see them, but if I can visually mark them, remember those stretches with my eyes at the low tide, then come back through with a vibrating jig, a spinnerbait, a crankbait, even pitching, you know, to those areas blind, man, those fish get really easier to catch, especially when they're spawning on that high tide. I always just, that's something I try to think of in my head, is mark as many of those fish as I can in that low tide, then come back and catch them on that high tide. And then this brings me to one of my all-time most favorite creeks ever on the Potomac River, and that's a quiet creek. I just love this creek, you know, just, it has it all. It's really protected water out of the wind. You know, we talked about clear water being clean is super, super important. It's a big creek. It's just houses a ton of fish, you know. I feel like the fish spawn in the Potomac River, you know, first back up in those creeks, you know, way up like a quiet creek like this. You know, you can get back in on these flats on the sides of this creek. Those fish are gonna spawn first, but then when you get out towards the end of May, these fish will actually spawn. There's gonna be some fish that spawn out here on this main river bar. This one over here, all down through here. You can see these grass beds. You know, this is where I'm gonna look, you know, the mid towards the end part of May. But this is just an awesome creek for me. It always has been in the past, and it's just a great place to start. If I was to go to the Potomac River in the month of May, I'm gonna start in the Quiet Creek just because it has everything I'm looking for, from boat docks to grass to a big creek that feeds it in the back. Remember to look for the cleanest water possible. If you see a lot of fish on low tide, come back and try to catch those fish on high tide. I think they get a lot easier to catch, especially when they're spawning. And you know, I'll put a lot of moving baits on. I'm gonna cover a lot of water until I get a bite. And then once I get a bite, that's when I slow down and I really start picking it apart. So guys, that's in a nutshell. That's a really quick breakdown of 3 monster fisheries. You know, I can't really do those justice in a very short amount of time, but I felt like I really hit the high points. I felt like I gave you a great place to start, a great way that I think about what I'm looking for when I go to these bodies of water. Man, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment, because you might be winning this next Optima Blue Top battery. When I do this again, the month of June, we'll be breaking them down all again. And you guys leave me comments of lakes to go break down. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy trying to break these things down for you. And these are all lakes that you guys have mentioned in my comments in my previous videos. So I appreciate you guys following along, and we'll see you next week.